Diets with Paul Rosen.
Our diets, our Western diets in America are just really, you just don't realize how poor they really are.
What would you say to others who would like to feel better?
Sometimes you need to find the instructions. That's where the testing and everything comes in, because without that knowledge, there's no way I could have got to the point where I'm at today.
Straight talk about health.
And then I start preaching and telling them what I've been doing. And this guy named Paul Rosen has changed my life.
With your host, Paul Rosen.
By the way, the information contained in this program is not approved by the FDA, nor intended to treat, diagnose, or claim to cure any medical condition or disease as defined by Western medicine. However, skilled practitioners of many disciplines have found nutrition response testing to be a highly reliable supportive technology for assessing the health and fitness of the body's functional system.
During this cold and flu season, one of the ways to make yourself healthier and less susceptible to colds and the flu is to boost your immune system. And one way to boost your immune system, however, will have a nasty side effect. It may guarantee that nobody will ever want to kiss you again. We'll talk about that this hour here on Health Matters. Isn't that a good headline, Paul? That makes you want to wonder, geez,
yeah,
I want to be kissed again, but I want to boost my immune system too. Can I do all those things exclusive of each other? Does it have to be one or the other? We'll find out this hour.
Actually, it can be both, really.
Well, let's find out.
With respect to the way the immune system works, I mean, exposure and overcoming is the way your immune system strengthens itself.
Rather than keep everybody in suspense, Paul, I may as well tell you right now that one way some people feel you can boost your immune system is by eating raw garlic. Raw garlic. Don't cook the garlic, they say, because that'll take out some of the beneficial elements in the garlic. However, I think if you're eating raw garlic, who's ever going to want to be in the same room with you again?
Yeah.
Much less kiss you on the lips.
Well, people like pickles, garlic pickles, and, that doesn't seem to prevent them. No, the thing about prevention, and you're sort of pushing way ahead in the presentation here, but the thing about prevention is it's really much simpler than doing something perhaps so socially obnoxious as that. So we're not pushing the consumption of raw garlic on this show. Plus, it doesn't really have to be raw. You can use it in food preparations and get significant value from the garlic itself. It's good food, though. Good food in many ways. Great for the immune system. Yep.
Right. And probably, as you said, it is socially obnoxious. But you know what? I think some fitness buffs do all kinds of socially obnoxious things in the course of practicing their fitness regimens. As a guy who goes to the gym on a regular basis, I can tell you the gym culture is full of socially obnoxious people, and eating raw garlic would be the least of it.
Oh, I see. Well,
there's some side commentary right there for all you folks who go to the gym on a regular basis. You know exactly what I'm talking about, too. I shouldn't have to expand on that.
Yeah. So back to the colds and flu. The gym is a really good place to pick it up because the virus, the flu virus, for example, is basically spread, via the secretions, human secretions like mucus and sweat and saliva. And it's also interestingly enough, the best way that you can at least physically help yourself avoid the flu is wash your hands and keep your hands away from your eyes and nose and mouth. Right? I mean that's one of the ways one of the main vectors for getting the flu.
So I think all of us are guilty of rubbing our eyes on occasion, wiping our mouths, doing whatever we do with our hands. So
unconsciously.
Those are very ingrained habits. So I think in addition to nutrition, we need to think about some of those just very minor habits that we've accumulated over the course of years. And until somebody like you pointed out, Paul, we don't think about those things as being unhealthy at all.
The other thing is whatever you do, use those antibacterial wipes and hand stations in the stores. Avoid them like the plague.
Well, those are ubiquitous now. You see them everywhere.
They're ubiquitous. You don't need to expose yourself to the chemistry which is contained in those things. there are a number of side effects, especially cumulative, that you really don't need. You don't need to actually increase your risk of something else while you're trying to avoid, while you're trying to avoid another risk, which is inherent in the population. That's exposure to, cold and flu bugs. So stay away from the antibacterial products. Washing your hands is actually more effective. It's more effective than exposing yourselves to these antibiotic wipes and hand stations. And and if you feel that that's necessary, walking into a store because you want to, not spread any kind of disease to a shopping cart, then go to the lavatory before you start and wash your hands if that's what you'd like.
And let me make sure I have all this straight, Paul. We're washing our hands because that just takes off elements that are unhealthy for us. Is that right?
You're washing your hand to eliminate to reduce the microbes and microbiota that is inherently on them. And
so the wipes and things like that aren't so good because they remove microbes that may actually be beneficial. Is that right?
Sure, there's some beneficial aspects, but I'm not really going there at this point. We're just saying that washing your hands is a way, should you touch your eyes, nose, or mouth with your hands, that you will be less likely to infect yourself with the flu bug.
So the old ways are the best in this case. Everything your mom used to tell you about washing your hands to make yourself cleaner and better and more healthy turned out to be true.
Simple. But do avoid the antibacterial wipes.
And we all go to public places every day, be it the gym or any store you happen to go to, any public area. It's going to be rife with things that are unhealthy for you in the way of germs and microbes, and just washing your hands can help you avoid some of that.
The biggest issue here is that we've talked about this many times in the past. Antibiotics essentially undermine your overall immune system. And that's the first and foremost thing, is don't undermine your overall immune system if you're concerned about the strength of its ability to assist you in either preventing or overcoming, other infections. Right?
So we're having
this is common sense here.
It is common sense, but as you commonly say, Paul, common sense is not so common.
I say it's uncommon. Yeah, it is.
It's something we need to pay attention to. So we're having an especially bad flu season.
So they say.
So they say, and I tend to, I'll take them at their word. Give us a call at 503-786-9390. If you've had a cold or the flu this season, maybe now would be a very beneficial time to call us on Health Matters and talk about things that can help you avoid all that. 503-786-9390. A couple of weeks ago, Paul, I had a pretty bad cold for about a week, and it was misery. I still had to go out and function. And I hate to admit, but I was still going out into public places and doing all my normal routines. So I was probably the typhoid Mary of my particular neighborhood for about 7 days.
And that's one of the reasons why, these colds and flus spread and seem to hang in the air so dramatically, is because, number one, during the warmer seasons, most people, spend more time outdoors than they spend indoors. And indoors is a way to trap all kinds of stuff. But secondly, people are driven for various good reasons. I mean, like paying rent and so forth, to be sick and still come to work and share all they've got with everybody else. So they spread. But let's take a look at the our own immune systems and how it operates. There are essentially two main processes that the body utilizes to keep itself healthy and to deal with invasions. And one of them is an intracellular system, and the other is an extracellular system. Intra means inside the cells, and extra means outside the cells.
All right.
So inside the cells is the part of the system where when, for example, you are invaded by a flu bug, viruses get inside the cells and essentially hijack the body's own replication system so that the virus, the body then becomes its own enemy. It begins to replicate the virus from within the cell.
Okay, I get that.
And so it's this process which causes us, it's called cell mediated, and it's this process that results in the production of high fever and cough and lots of mucus and the like. All right, that's the cell mediated part of the system that's responding. The second part is the extracellular, where there is a foreign protein of some sort that the body sends out white blood cells, right, to take care of the problem. These are the bad boys in our body, the white blood cells. That's called the humoral system. The humoral system. And you may recognize that in such things as the body's reaction to foods. We call it food sensitivities. That's the humoral system that's responding and causing us all kinds of problems. Usually autoimmune diseases, right? Now, vaccines actually stimulate this part of the mechanism, the humoral part, not the cell-mediated part. When your cell-mediated process gets stimulated and you develop immunity completely for life to whatever it was that stimulated that system. The humoral system, however, that's not true. You don't develop lifelong immunity to what stimulates the humoral part of the system, the extracellular part.
So again, to understand, these vaccines are increasing your body's defenses through the humoral system.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
However, they are not creating a long-term defense against flu, for example.
Which is why you don't really create. People do not create a lifelong immunity utilizing vaccinations. And
that's why, in theory, you would need a new vaccine every year.
Exactly. So the question is, right, is it a worse thing to expose yourself then to the product? We've talked about this before. The idea of vaccination perhaps isn't so bad. I'm leaving the door open for that. But the product itself, the actual execution of the product, is what potentially gives us pause as to whether we should indulge in allowing that to be done. Because the product contains preservatives oftentimes, which are inherently unhealthy for us, right? Causing an inflammatory pattern to set up in our bodies, maybe for a lifetime, right? Or maybe creating an autoimmune condition, which will be which potentially you'd have to live with for the rest of your life.
So let me make sure I understand. A flu vaccine then may not create any kind of a system that would keep our bodies safe from the flu over a long-term period.
Not a chance.
But it may create other complications, which may be long-term.
So, and then there are the preservatives, like if they are preserved with heavy metals like aluminum or mercury or whatever. That's often the case. Those two metals have no place in your body, especially in the chemical condition that they're utilized in the vaccines.
So mercury would be an added, bad.
Thimerosal is the terminology.
Thimerosal equals mercury?
As a preservative in the product.
Okay, so I'll just say mercury as opposed to thimerosal, but mercury is just not good for you in general. We know that.
It is a deadly poison and has no place in the human body. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't ingest or inhale mercury in a natural form, but the body does have a means of dealing with that. But you certainly don't bypass all the immune defenses in doing so. the body has a number of different responses to things like mercury or aluminum when you inhale them or ingest them from eating something. Whereas injecting them directly into the bloodstream bypasses all of those defenses and leaves you pretty much defenseless to that chemistry.
And so if we accept that, we could also accept that if you're getting a flu vaccine every year, you're ingesting more mercury every year as a preservative and possibly creating these other very negative side effects.
Precisely. Potentially, that's totally true. And so the real question becomes, is getting a flu vaccine engaging in risks as well as what might be the foreseen benefits, as opposed to not getting the vaccine and then simply facing the consequences, taking the common sense, washing your hands, right? Don't touch your eyes, nose, and mouth. Don't try not to be around a known environment where there's lots of viruses. But even if that's true and you get the flu, very interesting, very simple to deal with. I mean, in my clinic, I see anywhere between 50 and 75 people a week. And I want to tell you, almost every single one of them has been exposed to this cold and flu season. And almost every single one of them is doing something in a proactive way that is keeping them safe and secure from the bugs. And even if they get the bug, we're able to utilize tools that resolves that in very short order. The complications are essentially none, with no increase of risk whatsoever, because healthy people who get exposed to the flu and have access to tools that will allow them to both fend off and ultimately overcome. Very simple, very easy, no problem. Nothing like the media is hyping the flu. Nothing like really unhealthy people, an unhealthy population, which ours is, essentially. And then encountering a bug where their organisms, their bodies are not up to the task. The flu bug is not the problem. That's relatively simple to deal with. And I've proven that in my clinic, especially this season, which I agree, by the way, has been a challenge, right? But that's because people are sicker and sicker and sicker and don't really know it.
Now, there is something else about the flu vaccines and why they may be ineffective. It's the fact that the flu actually mutates every year. We'll talk more about that momentarily. First, though, your patient Dell had his own issues. Is that right?
He's a perfect example of a guy who, oh my gosh, had gone through all kinds of things. He'd already have heart operations. He was still experiencing lots of symptoms, chronic colds, allergies, even still angina, and came to me, and this was our encounter.
How did you come to get your nutrition response testing evaluation in the first place?
Well, I'd been sick for several months and not getting any better. In fact, I was getting worse. I would have trouble laying down and sleeping at night and breathing because my nose was draining and my bronchial tubes were filling up. And everything I tried, I had been to the doctor and they'd give me a round of antibiotics and then a round of prednisone and then another round of antibiotics, another round of prednisone.
Oh my gosh.
And they said that, let's try a heavier dose of prednisone, that my body was just overreacting and overstimulated. Stimulated.
There you go.
And so if they put me on a longer dose of prednisone, that would calm the body and it wouldn't react and things would return back to normal again. And I says, no, you've had 5 chances already and you haven't hit it yet.
Oh my goodness.
Getting worse. And so that's when I came to you, and within 20 minutes you said I had wheat allergies and the sugar I need to get off all grains and all wheat to let my body return to a normal condition. And within 3 days of getting off the wheat, and I was able to breathe and sleep at night and lay down and sleep again.
3 days?
Yes.
Gosh, I forgot about that. And then, were there any other symptoms or conditions that you were experiencing besides that? I mean, I know that was the one that was, in your face. But were there any other things long term? Any other issues?
Well, I've had double bypass heart surgery and angina.
In other words, cardiovascular disease.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else?
And then recently, I had chlorine poisoning.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at, the other thing was we were talking about it, and that's kind of what came to my mind. You said that you used to have allergies, or you were having allergies, and you noticed that you weren't experiencing them anymore.
Oh, yes. And that's taken 3 years to recognize. Because every year in the springtime, and I never had allergies before, and so every year in the springtime, I was getting worse, and it was lasting longer. So
right.
I would get the colds and have to take off work and just to try to get over it. But I all of a sudden realized this year that I haven't missed a day of work because of sickness. So
you haven't missed a day since then. And I know, the interesting thing that you said now, it's very important for people out there to understand that Dell came to me with his specific issues. And when we perform a nutrition response testing evaluation, it's based on the individual. So for him, it was important to get off the wheat and some other grains. And sugar's kind of a no-brainer. You'd agree on that, right?
Yes.
And have you had any experiences with going back on sugar or sort of getting into it intentionally or unintentionally? And what was the result?
Well, it's interesting because Friday we went out and had dessert, and I cheated, and I had some ice cream with a
cherry on
caramel. Yeah, no, it was
no cherry.
That. It was a maple sugar concentrate on top of it, along with a chocolate or a brownie, and I just took one bite of the brownie. I knew it had wheat in it, and but I enjoyed the sugar and the maple flavored topping, and I was up all night.
Oh my goodness! So you just get reminded.
Yes, I had to test the system.
So the interesting thing about that, among other things, Paul, is that Dell mentioned he had an allergy to wheat, I believe, but then he just happened to toss in there that he'd had double bypass heart surgery too. That may have an impact on his future.
I tell you, it's amazingly common for people when I see people and they come, is to leave out probably the most the most obvious disease conditions that are being that they're actually they think are sort of not there. High blood pressure is another one. High blood sugars are another one. Diabetes is typical. People come in and go, I want to lose weight. Got to lose weight. Right. Meanwhile, they've either been past heart patients, or they're on thyroid medication, or they're taking they've got GERD, or they're taking all kinds of medications or various things. Barely even mention them, when they come in. I want to lose weight. Well, the bottom line is, folks, is weight is for most people is almost never the issue if you're experiencing symptoms. Right. Weight is the least of your problems.
Really, and I would think for many of us that's big news, because I, among millions of Americans, I think, would assume that if you're overweight, your body is just going to be more susceptible to any bad thing that could happen to it.
In my clinic, right, people always, say more often than not, come in, and the number one thing they want to do is lose weight, when in fact they have a whole list of various types of chronic symptoms coming and going or coming and staying. And I absolutely make every effort to try to, take a deep breath with them and say, weight is the least of your issues. Let's improve the quality of your life by actually addressing the root cause of everything that's going on. And by the way, one of the side effects of being on a personalized nutritional healing program will be the loss of some weight. How's that sound?
That sounds good to me, and in fact, it was my next question. I think weight still obviously does have a huge impact on our general health, but if you're making yourself healthier in general, I would think weight loss would be one of the things that you would enjoy.
I'm not talking about a 400, 500, 600-pound person. I'm talking about someone who absolutely knows they have some weight to lose, but many times, especially with women, their endocrine systems are so cattywampus that there's no way. It doesn't matter what they do, they can't lose weight because their endocrine systems, and what I mean by endocrine system is the pituitary gland in your head, the thyroid, the ovaries, the pancreas, the thymus, the adrenal glands. These are all endocrine glands. You can look them up on the web. And that whole system is out of balance. It's out of whack. And it wouldn't matter if they stood on their head and, drank Metrical until they passed. They're not going to lose much weight, right? Find the nutritional deficiencies and barriers to healing and treat the root cause. And, the cure is yours. You can have it, but you have to do something, right? You have to be willing to make significant lifestyle changes. It's not that hard when you work with somebody who's done it thousands of times, right? Easy, relatively easy road, but change for most people is really difficult. It just is. Change is difficult for everybody. But if you don't like the direction that your life is headed, if you're catching colds and the flu every single year and suffering for weeks, maybe even months, or God forbid, worse, then don't look to a vaccination to save your life, right? It's not likely to happen. Right. Start taking precautions on the front side. Do something on the front. Patch your roof before it rains. You'll stay a lot drier and experience a lot less damage, right? If you do something on the front side. I'm tired of hearing people say, oh, it's too hard. Oh, I would never be able to do that, right? And then complain on the backside about how bad they feel or about having to take medications or whatnot, right? Do something. Be inspired. Know that the quality of life that you're experiencing now, if you're experiencing any kind of health compromise, is not what you have to experience. You can take steps to change that. You can do it, right? You just need a little inspiration and a guide. And I'm offering my services as a guide, right? But only for the willing, only for the able, right? And Dell was, after what did he say, a double bypass. He didn't even mention that until the end, right? But he had chronic allergies and a chronic colds and lung infections and all that sort of stuff. And within a matter of days, but ultimately it took him a little longer to deal with some other things. He was on his way to a quality of life he could only have dreamed of, and it didn't involve the use of chronic use of medications. You don't have to do it.
One more note, you can get a free chapter of Paul Rosen's book, The Missing Piece. Just go to his website, acunatural.com, acunatural.com, and fill out the dialog box that pops up. Rest assured, no information you provide will ever be shared with anyone else. So, what are you waiting for? Get going on your personal road to wellness today.